Hey guys. If your day has been loud inside your head, you don't have to fight it tonight. Just let it follow something steadier. You stand in Carthage at night beside a crescent war harbor, where the sea curves inward like it's agreeing to be held. Moonlight lies like a ribbon on calm water, and the air tastes of salt and resin, with a dark thread of pine tar. Here's the cheeky truth. You probably won't survive staying clenched and busy. So let your jaw unclench. Let the night do the holding for you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and let me know how your day has really been, your worries, your exhaustion, or even a tiny joy that made you smile. I'm here to truly listen and offer the most sincere, heartfelt advice I can. Now turn off the lights. Take a deep, slow breath. Let your tiredness melt away, and gently close your eyes. Let's drift together into tonight's dreamlike lands. And tomorrow morning, if you still remember, send me a message and tell me what you dreamed. You step forward, and the harbor receives you without drama, like a bowl that was built for water. The first thing your body understands is the curve. The crescent is geometry that feels like mercy, a long arc of stone wrapping the sea, turning open water into something held, not trapped. The inner basin lies calm enough that the moon's reflection doesn't shatter. It only trembles, as if it's breathing at the same slow pace you're trying to remember. Low lamps glow along the rim behind windscreens, each flame disciplined into a steady teardrop. Their light doesn't flood the quay. It pools in clean circles, leaving the spaces between in restful shadow. You walk the stone edge at an unhurried pace because nothing here rewards rushing. The paving is smoothed by years of sandals and cartwheels, worn into gentle dips that guide your feet. It feels cool where night has touched it, warm where day still lingers in its pores. Your senses stack, salt on your tongue, resin in your nose, tar at the back of your throat, a faint metallic tang from fittings nearby. This isn't delicate beauty. It's purposeful beauty, the kind that happens when function and pride decide to cooperate. Coils of rope sit in obedient loops with ends tucked in so they won't snag. Long oars rest in neat tiers, pale in the lamplight like bones lined up for inspection. Storage spaces are laid out with calm confidence, as if the harbor has been tested and improved until it learned how to stay ready without staying anxious. Near the waterline, iron rings are set into stone, their edges polished by countless ropes. Grooves cut into the quay show where lines have bitten and held, where weight was tested and didn't win. A few steps descend toward the basin, dark with damp at the edges, and you instinctively choose the drier stones, your body learning from the harbor's quiet warnings. Farther along the curve, a shielded lantern shifts and steadies, a small wink of light that says the night is being watched with routine care. You pause near the lip where stone meets water. Tiny waves slide in and retreat, leaving a brief shine on the quay as if the sea is polishing it. The sound is small and repetitive, and repetition, when you're tired, stops being boring and starts being a lullaby. Without trying, your breath begins to match it. Inhale, cool salt. Exhale, warm stone. Inhale, resin. Exhale, quiet. Across the basin, low shapes rest in the dark, hulls at rest, long and still, like sleeping animals that have agreed to behave. You don't need their names to feel their presence. Lamps reflect as soft streaks on water. The moon sits there like a coin no one needs to spend. Your mind, out of habit, tries to label the night. You feel the urge to turn it into a summary you can control. But the harbor makes control look unnecessary. Order is already here, built into spacing and routine. You don't need to bring extra. You can borrow the city's steadiness the way you borrow warmth from a blanket someone already laid out. As you continue along the curve, the wall beside you reveals shallow recesses carved at intervals, niches, dark pockets in stone that seem to wait for lamplight. You don't approach them yet. You just register them, the way you notice a night light in a hallway and feel safer without needing to explain why. For now, you stay with the basin and the lamps and the quiet competence. A breeze slides across the water and touches your face, cooler than you expect. It carries tar and pine and sea. Your eyelids grow heavier, not with defeat, but with comfort. You reach a broader stretch of quay where stone is stained darker in places. Pitch, seawater, footprints, the history of labor pressed into mineral memory. You can almost imagine earlier hours, hands slick with resin, ropes hauled, oars lifted, tools set down with practiced care. Then the thought fades, because the day is done. The platform rests, and the harbor becomes, for you, a calm corridor into sleep. You take another slow breath and feel the first real shift. Your thoughts stop sprinting and start strolling. You're not asleep yet, but you're closer. And the crescent, patiently holding the sea, teaches your body a simple trick: how to hold itself, gently, without spilling. You keep moving because the harbor's curve doesn't exactly allow you to stop being guided. It's a slow, physical persuasion, stone leading to stone, lamp to lamp, water always at your left like a companion that refuses to crowd you. The calm you borrowed a moment ago begins to feel less borrowed and more yours. As if your nervous system has been reminded of an older setting it used to run on, steady, sea-washed, uncomplicated. Ahead, the character of the shoreline changes. The crescent's polished quiet gives way to the work bones behind it, slipways that angle down into the water, low ramps slick with old brine, and long stretches of timber laid out like ribs waiting for a body. Here, the air thickens with pine tar and sun-baked pitch that still clings to it even after darkness falls. The smell is oddly comforting, sharp at first, then warm, then almost sweet, like the world's most honest candle. You step onto a section of ground where the stone gives way to packed earth and planks. Your soles register the difference immediately. This is not a promenade meant for lingering admiration. It's a surface meant for weight. A place that expects barrels, beams, people carrying more than they feel like carrying. You notice the subtle grooves in the wood where something heavy has been dragged, the shallow dents where a dropped tool once struck and left a scar. The harbor keeps a ledger of touch. There are figures here, late workers, watchers, people whose bodies have learned the shape of labor so well they can move through it quietly, even at night. They don't surround you. They don't perform. They simply exist with the unbothered confidence of locals who know where every rope ends. A few glance your way, not suspicious, just attentive in the practical sense, a new shape in a familiar place. And without a word, without any dramatic "Welcome, traveler," one of them lifts a small lamp a little higher as they pass, letting its light spill across the planks so you can see where to step. It's a gesture so simple you almost miss its kindness. You follow the line of the slipway down toward the water's edge. It slopes gently, but there's power in its design, a controlled descent, a path for ships to be coaxed in and out of the sea like disciplined beasts. At the bottom, the water is darker, the reflections thicker. You crouch, not because you have to, but because the night invites you to move slower, and you watch thin waves slide in and retreat, leaving a brief shine on the ramp like a tongue of silver. Up the slope, you notice an oar rack, long, low frames holding oars in neat tiers. Each oar is a promise of motion. In the moonlight, they look like pale bones, but alive with potential. You run your fingers along one, lightly, and the wood feels smooth from so much use that it has become almost polished, like a worry stone. You imagine hands gripping it, palms blistered and healed and blistered again, the rhythm of rowing turning bodies into engines and water into distance. The harbor, you realize, is built on rhythms layered over rhythms. The tide, the watch, the work shifts, the row strokes. Even the way tar cools and hardens has its own schedule. Everything here is time, made visible. You move on, and the scent of resin grows stronger near a sheltered shed where stacked timber rests in shadow. The beams are arranged in careful order, lengths sorted by size, curvature, grain. There's a quiet intelligence in this arrangement, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. You see wedges and clamps, coils of rope, bundles of reeds. You see the tools of making, adzes, scrapers, mallets, things that look simple until you imagine the precision required to make a ship's body sit right on water. To convince the sea to hold you. A small breeze drifts through the shed and stirs loose shavings along the floor. They skitter like tiny pale insects, catching lamplight for a second before settling again. For reasons you can't fully explain, the sight makes your chest loosen. It's the gentleness of it, maybe, the idea that even in a place built for war harbor discipline, the world still allows a soft flutter of wood curls in the dark. You pass another platform where tar pots sit covered, their lids weighted with stones. Even the tar is treated like something that can't be allowed to wander. The smell around these pots is deep and grounding. It clings to your hair, your clothes, your imagination. It makes you feel anchored. Like you could be carried by water but still have a core that doesn't drift. As you continue, the harbor's order reveals itself in small details. Ropes are not left in messy heaps. They're coiled in consistent loops, the ends tucked in so they won't snag. Nets hang in sections, mended and folded, each knot a tiny decision made by someone who refuses to let small failures become large disasters. You see pegs driven into wood at measured intervals, places where gear returns after use like a ritual. Here, always here. There's something about that reliability that soothes you more than any poetic speech ever could. You come to a place where the slipways open onto a broader expanse of water. The inner basin is still calm, but here you can sense the harbor's deeper intent. The ramps align with invisible lanes. The platforms feel positioned for quick movement. You can almost see it. In a different hour, in a different mood, this place could snap into action like a tightened sail. That thought should feel tense, but in this moment it's strangely reassuring. Not because you crave conflict. No, you've had enough of that in your own head, but because you crave competence. The harbor is competent. It knows how to become what it needs to be, and you, quietly, are learning from it. A watcher passes again, this time carrying something wrapped in cloth. The bundle is heavy enough to make their shoulders drop slightly, but their steps remain even. As they go, they pause at the oar rack and adjust one oar by a finger's width, aligning it with the others. such a small correction. Such a big message. Care is not always loud. Sometimes it's won or shifted into place in the dark. You take that message and let it settle somewhere behind your ribs. Your own life, you think, your own messy schedule, your own scattered energy, doesn't need a grand overhaul right this second. Maybe it needs one quiet alignment. One small thing returned to its peg. One loop of rope recoiled instead of abandoned. The thought is not a lecture. It's a lullaby disguised as insight. You walk on, letting the slipways and racks and sheds pass by like slow scenery in a dream. The harbor smells, tar, pine, salt, braid together into a perfume of function. Your eyes feel heavier now, not with exhaustion, but with the soft weight of comfort. The night is doing what it's supposed to do. The city is doing what it's supposed to do. And you are, for once, not fighting your own tiredness like it's an enemy. At the edge of the work zone, you see the carved niches again in the distance, little dark mouths in stone waiting for lamplight. You don't rush toward them. You simply let their presence mark the next turn in your path, the next gentle pull of the story. You keep following the curve, and the curve keeps holding you. You arrive back at the inner base in the way a thought returns to its center after wandering, slower, softer, more willing to stay. The working platforms and slipways fade behind you, and the harbor's heart opens again into that calm circle of water, the crescent's embrace tightening into something more intimate. Here, the surface is so smooth it feels almost improper to disturb it with anything as blunt as urgency. You drift along the ring, and you start noticing the kind of order that doesn't rely on walls or shouting or grand signs. It's order made of small agreements. A rope stretched here, a post set there, a line painted faintly on stone, a lantern positioned not for beauty but for clarity. The basin is divided into invisible lanes the way a disciplined mind divides a problem into solvable parts. You can't see the lines in the water, not exactly, but you can feel them, like the difference between a room that's merely empty and a room that's intentionally clear. Along the edge, ropes lie in arcs, tethered to iron rings that have been worn smooth by years of pull. Some ropes form low barriers, guiding feet away from the lip where algae slicks the stone. Others mark where equipment belongs, where bundles should be set down, where a cart should turn. The harbor is a choreography that prevents mistakes before they happen. And the strange thing is, it doesn't make you tense. It makes you relieved. Like being guided through a dark hallway by someone who quietly moved the furniture out of your path. You look across the basin and catch the shimmer of a signal, just a brief wink of light from a shielded lantern, like a blink between watchers. No drama. No fanfare. Just information, passed cleanly. A second later, somewhere farther along the ring, another lamp answers with a slightly different rhythm. It's a language made of restraint, and in that restraint there's a kind of tenderness. People here care enough to be precise. You keep circling. The stone underfoot changes subtly from the rougher work planks you walked earlier to a smoother surface, more often touched by bare feet and daily patrols than by dragged timber. The temperature of the stone is pleasant, cool without being cold, as if it's been saving its chill just for your overheated thoughts. Every few steps, you pass a lamp tucked into a niche of its own, wind-guarded, soot-stained, faithful. The flames don't flutter much. They're protected. So are you, in a way you didn't ask for but suddenly appreciate. The harbor's silence isn't absolute. It's full of small sounds that don't demand attention. Water sighing against stone. A rope creaking as it settles. The soft scuff of sandals somewhere behind you. The distant clink of metal. Maybe a hook being set down. Maybe a tool kissed against a bracket. These noises are like the background hiss of a warm room, the kind that tells your body it can stop scanning for danger. As you move, you begin to recognize the watchers not as guards in some harsh, rigid sense, but as people whose jobs are braided into the city's breathing. They walk routes that make the harbor feel held. Their presence is steady, not invasive. One passes you on the inside line of the ring, keeping a respectful distance. Their lamp is shaded so it doesn't spill light onto the water more than necessary. But as they draw near, they angle it slightly toward your feet, not enough to spotlight you, just enough to reveal a patch of stone darkened by moisture. It's another small kindness disguised as procedure. You take the hint and step around the slick patch, your movement quiet, almost grateful. Then you continue, and your mind continues doing that quiet thing it's been learning tonight, letting other systems hold you for a while. At one point, the ring widens into a shallow recess with posts set in a measured pattern. You can tell something is meant to happen here. The posts are too deliberate to be random. You imagine ropes stretched between them to create channels, spaces where supplies can be stacked, where crews can assemble without confusion. Even now, when the harbor is mostly at rest, the pattern remains, an imprint of readiness. There's a comfort in readiness that doesn't have to become action. A comfort in knowing the plan exists, even if nobody wants to use it tonight. You keep circling and notice faint markings on the stone, scratches, grooves, shallow lines that could be accidental if they weren't so consistent. Maybe they measure distances. Maybe they mark positions for equipment. Maybe they're simply the result of years of the same motions repeated, the way a doorstep becomes hollowed by faithful feet. Either way, they tell a story of persistence. And that story slides into you like warm tea. You don't have to be spectacular to matter. You have to be consistent. The moon's reflection sits in the basin like a coin someone forgot to spend. It trembles with each tiny wave, but it never breaks apart fully. You find yourself staring at it longer than you meant to, the way you stare at a candle flame when you're too tired to think. Your eyelids lower for a moment. When you open them, the harbor feels slightly closer, as if it took advantage of your brief surrender to move in and wrap you tighter. You pass another set of ropes, and this time you notice how the ends are finished, tied with care, the loose fibers trimmed or tucked, the knots snug but not aggressive. There's an art to tying a knot that holds without crushing. You think of your own day, how you hold yourself, how you tighten around stress until you can't breathe. Here, the knots hold with confidence, not panic. You don't need to strangle your life to keep it together. You just need the right knot tied calmly. A gust comes, slightly stronger than before, and ripples the basin. The moon's coin shivers and elongates, then returns. The lamps flicker behind their shields but stay lit. The ropes sway gently, post steady. Nothing collapses. Nothing overreacts. The harbor accepts the gust like a mature person accepts a bad mood, acknowledged, absorbed, released. You feel that lesson land in your body before it lands in your mind. Your shoulders drop a fraction. Your tongue relaxes off the roof of your mouth. Your breath deepens without instruction. You realize, with a small surprised tenderness, that your body has been waiting for permission to soften. As you continue the ring, the carved niches along the wall become clearer, small recesses cut into stone at regular intervals, some holding dark shapes, some empty, some faintly glinting where metal or shell catches light. You're not there yet, not fully, but they are no longer distant. They're part of the harbor's rhythm, like punctuation marks along your path. And the way they repeat, niche, lamp, rope, post, water, creates a pattern that starts to lull you. Repetition is not boring when you're tired. Repetition is mercy. You make nearly a full circle, and the world feels simpler for it. Not because you learned a grand historical fact. Not because someone explained anything to you. Simply because you walked. Because you let the harbor's quiet rules replace your own frantic improvisation. Near the point where your circle began, you pause again. The basin lies before you, unbothered. The watcher's signals blink softly at distances you can't measure but can somehow trust. You stand in that trust for a beat, letting it seep into your bones. Then, without forcing anything, you let your feet turn toward the niches along the quay, toward the sea idols waiting in their small stone homes, toward the next gentle layer of Carthage's night. You approach the niches the way you approach a sleeping room, careful, instinctively lowering your footsteps, as if even your curiosity should whisper. The stone wall that borders the quay has been carved in shallow recesses at intervals, each one a small pocket of shadow. In lamplight, the recesses look like little open mouths, not hungry, just waiting. Waiting for light. Waiting for attention. Waiting for the kind of offering that doesn't need to be dramatic to feel sincere. Up close, you realize they're not all the same. Some niches are plain, simply cut into the stone with clean edges softened by time. Others have faint decorative lines, waves, spirals, fish-like curves, so worn they're almost more felt than seen. In a few, small figures sit tucked back, a sea idol carved from wood darkened by oil, a little stone shape smoothed by fingers, a shell arranged upright like a tiny altar. Their scale is modest, which makes the devotion around them feel strangely intimate. These are not towering gods demanding spectacle. These are small guardians people trust to be close enough to hear quiet worries. You move from niche to niche, letting your eyes adjust to each pocket of darkness. Inside one, there's a shallow dish with a scatter of salt crystals, sparkling faintly like ground stars. Inside another, a coil of dried seaweed rests, as if placed with care rather than abandoned by tide. In one niche, a thin strip of leather is tied around a small figure's base, the leather worn soft at the knot. In another, a single coin sits pressed into a smear of wax, held firmly in place. Even the offerings seem disciplined, as if the sea and the city both appreciate neatness. Your mind, still trying to be clever, wants to categorize the practice. Religious, superstitious, cultural, practical. But the niches don't care about your labels. They simply exist as part of the harbor's breathing. And you, standing here in the lamplight, feel how natural it is for people to place a portion of their hope somewhere outside their own chest, somewhere visible, somewhere shared, somewhere small enough to touch. A figure approaches from behind, footsteps soft on the stone. You don't startle. You've already been trained by the harbor's quiet to expect movement without threat. The person carries a small lamp with a shield that keeps the flame from flaring. In their other hand, there's a little bundle, maybe a twist of cloth, maybe a pouch. They stop at a niche 2 spaces away from you, not crowding you, not performing. They simply lean in. You watch, slow as drifting kelp. They open the bundle and pinch out a small amount of something pale, salt, maybe, or ground grain, and place it carefully into the niche's dish. Then they touch 2 fingers lightly to the stone just below the recess, as if marking the spot with warmth. It's a simple ritual. No words. No theatrics. The kind of action that says, "I've done this before, and it helped me sleep." They straighten and, noticing you, tilt their lamp slightly toward the niche you're examining. The light reveals details you missed. The idol inside is carved with a stylized wave pattern across its chest, and the stone behind it is darkened where oil has soaked in over years. There's a faint scent of something herbal, resin mixed with crushed leaves, trapped in that pocket of stone. The scent is old and comforting, like a remedy your grandmother would approve of, even if she'd also complain about the mess. You take in the details, then shift to the next niche, letting the warm pool of lamplight follow. The person moves on without fuss, continuing their quiet circuit. And you realize, this is how the harbor welcomes you. Not with greetings. With light offered at the right angle. You lean closer to one niche and see a tiny carving of a fish set beside a shell. The fish is so worn its features blur, but the shape is unmistakable. Its mouth points toward the water. Beside it, a small knot of cord holds 2 beads, one pale, one dark. You can almost feel the hands that tied that knot, quick, practiced, maybe slightly trembling the first time, steadier after years. The beads look like they've been touched often, polished by anxious fingers seeking a point of focus. You move on and find a niche with a small bowl that has dried residue around its rim. Maybe oil once burned here, a wick once floated, a flame once kept vigil. The residue is not pretty, but it's honest. It reminds you that devotion is often a kind of maintenance work. You show up. You refill. You wipe soot. You keep the flame alive. It's not glamorous. It's faithful. And if you're being brutally honest, that's probably the kind of love you want in your own life. Less fireworks, more refilling the lamp. A breeze slides along the wall, and for a moment the flames in nearby lamps shift, throwing shadows into the niches. The idol's shapes seem to move, just a trick of light, but your tired mind leans into it anyway. It's easy, in this hour, to feel the stone breathe. Easy to imagine the sea listening. Easy to believe that when people place salt and coin and leather here, the harbor absorbs some of their fear and returns steadiness in exchange. You pause at a niche where the offering is oddly specific, a small piece of cured leather stamped with a simple mark, placed flat like a pledge. The stamp is not ornate, just a clean impression. The leather's edges are darkened, and you can tell it's been handled. This is not discarded scrap, it's chosen. You picture a tannery artisan inland, hands that smell of bark and dye and animal hide, cutting this piece carefully, stamping it, bringing it here after a long day. Not because they expect miracles, but because they understand the psychology of leaving a worry somewhere else. A physical act to help the mind let go. You feel a small ache of recognition. Your own worries, most days, stay trapped in your chest like restless birds. Maybe you've never given them a niche. Maybe you've never offered them a bowl of salt and a quiet corner of stone. Maybe you've been trying to hold everything internally like some heroic storage unit, and honestly, it's not a flattering look. You let your hand hover near the stone, not touching an idol, not interfering. just hovering, as if you're learning the shape of reverence without needing to claim it. Then you rest your fingertips on the wall below the niche, where countless other fingers have left their warmth. The stone is cool, but it doesn't reject you. It simply receives the contact and keeps it. You stand like that for a breath, then another. Your mind slows further. Your eyelids grow heavier, and the lamplight softens at the edges. The harbor's water murmurs nearby, and the niches seem to deepen, as if inviting you to place something down. You don't need to invent an offering. Your presence is enough. Your attention is enough. Your tiredness, acknowledged instead of fought, is enough. You let that be your quiet gift. When you step back, you notice the route ahead. The quay continues toward areas where supplies and tallying happen, where the harbor's discipline becomes more economic than spiritual. But these niches stay with you like small anchors. You carry their image in your mind, the shallow recess, the humble figure, the salt, the coin, the leather pledge, like a set of calming beads you can touch without anyone seeing. And as you turn to follow the quay onward, the last lamp behind you flickers once, steadying itself, as if approving your decision to keep moving gently. You leave the niches behind you, but you don't really leave them. They cling like salt after a swim, quiet, stubborn, oddly comforting. The quay widens, the stone underfoot worn flatter by daily traffic, and the harbor's mood shifts from devotion to accounting. It's still night soft, still restrained, but now the restraint tastes like careful measuring, the hush of people who keep the city steady by knowing what is where, and how much of it exists. You follow the curve into a stretch where low awnings and simple frames lean against the wall. Supply stalls, not the loud kind, but practical stations that can be folded away when the harbor needs speed. Lamps sit low here, aimed at hands and markings rather than faces. Light pools on crates and lids, turning the whole place into a quiet workshop of numbers. Even the shadows seem to stand in orderly lines. Grain dust hangs in the air, faint as a second fog. Sacks are stacked in neat columns, each tied with a familiar knot, each stamped with a simple mark. You don't need to read it to understand the promise. This has been counted. This will not vanish just because night arrived. Amphorae stand nearby in rows, their necks sealed with wax, their bellies smelling faintly of oil, brine, and fermented sweetness. The scents braid into tar and resin until the harbor becomes a pantry beside a shipyard, and your body loosens because stored food means a planned tomorrow. Then you reach the edge of iron. A table is laid with fittings and fasteners, rings, hooks, nails sorted by size like shiny seeds. In lamplight, each piece flashes and then goes dark again as you move. The air carries a faint metallic tang, clean and cold compared to the warmer smells, and it wakes you for a second like the taste of a spoon. A worker settles a small balance scale on a crate. Another sets weights on one side with a touch so precise it looks almost gentle. Someone loosens a sack, pinches a sample of grain, rubs it between fingers, and lets it fall back like sand returning to a dune. No one performs. Competence is the only language here, and it doesn't require volume. Along the wall, boards hang from pegs, tally boards smoothed by use, scratched with clusters of marks. Notches record arrivals and departures the way tree rings record seasons. A lamp has been positioned to light one board exactly, and beside it rests a stylus whose handle has been polished by countless palms. Each scratch is a tiny contract. I will remember this, so you don't have to worry. I will count, so you can sleep. Someone passes with a coil of rope on their shoulder, loops bouncing softly against their back. The rope smells of hemp and sea. They stop at a peg line, hang the coil exactly where it belongs, and adjust the loops so the working end is easy to grab in the dark. Tiny alignment, big safety. You almost want to applaud, but you're learning the harbor's lesson. Care is quieter than ego. You drift between stacks arranged by category: cloth for wrapping, reeds for sealing, tool crates with handles turned outward. At one stall, leather straps are bundled and tagged, their faint smell of tanned hide pulling a thread back to the artisan lanes inland. Nearby, resin lumps sit in a shallow tray, and a small pot warms over a protected flame, softening the resin just enough to make it usable. Pine scent rises and your memory links it instantly to the slipways. Resin means repair, not panic. The city is teaching your senses to trust process more than impulse. A jar near the corner wobbles on its sand bed when a breeze slips under an awning. It's a tiny drama, the kind your anxious brain would normally inflate into prophecy. But here, a hand appears, steadies the jar, nudges the sand, and the wobble is over. Nothing else changes. No one reacts. The world does not end. Your nervous system registers this like a new rule. Not every tremble deserves a spiral. Near the end of the stretch, broken things are set aside with the same calm order: a cracked amphora, a frayed rope end, a bent hook. Even failure has a designated place. You feel a small, private relief, because you've been treating your own frayed edges like a moral flaw instead of what they really are: maintenance items, waiting for care. You pause once more by a tally board as someone adds a fresh notch with a quick, confident motion. The sound is tiny, stylus on wood, a soft scrape that feels almost satisfying. The night is still being managed. The harbor's memory is being updated. And you understand, in a way your body believes, that survival here isn't built on drama. It's built on steady attention. When you step away from the stalls and return to the smoother quay, the basin's water reappears at the edge of your vision. The lamps look warmer now, as if they've noticed you're finally letting yourself be held. You carry grain dust and pine resin with you like a thin, comforting cloak, and you keep moving along the curve, deeper into Carthage's gentle machinery. The quay begins to thin out, not abruptly, but like a song fading into a softer verse. The supply stalls and tally boards recede behind you, and the harbor's breath, salt, resin, tar, starts to mingle with something inland: warm stone, smoke from cooking fires, faint spices caught in fabric. You turn away from the water and feel the city's texture change under your feet. The transition is a narrow passage, a gentle constriction. One moment you're walking beside open basin and disciplined lanes. The next, you're stepping into streets that seem to fold inward, as if Carthage wants to keep its most human parts close to its ribs. The stones here are smaller, set in patterns that make the ground subtly uneven. Your steps slow automatically. Not because you're afraid, but because the street demands you notice it. Lamplight becomes more personal. Instead of harbor lamps shielded and standardized, you see small household flames behind thin curtains, behind latticework, behind half-open doors. Light spills in warmer tones, more amber than silver, and it makes the night feel less like a watch shift and more like a living room. Shadows become softer. Walls become closer. The air is less windswept and more layered, holding smells the way cloth holds perfume. You pass a doorway where a shallow bowl of water sits near the threshold, reflecting a tiny moon. Beside it, a bundle of reeds leans against the wall. Practical, humble. The kind of scene that says, people live here, and they have routines that keep them sane. Your eyes catch small marks on the walls, handprints smudged with soot, scratches where a cart brushed too close, a faint line of chalk that might have once guided a measurement. Even domestic spaces carry traces of craft. You walk deeper and begin hearing different sounds. Not the open hush of water, but the close hush of neighbors, a broom brushing stone, a lid set gently onto a pot, the faint clack of a loom somewhere behind a wall. It's all quiet enough that it doesn't wake your mind. It merely gives it something soft to rest against. A narrow lane opens into a slightly wider pocket, an intersection where three alleys meet and the walls step back just enough to let you breathe. In that pocket, the stone feels warmer, as if day heat has been stored here longer. You pause and let the warmth drift into your ankles. Your body likes warmth when it's tired. It takes it as permission to stop bracing. There are artisans here even at this hour, though. Working looks different at night. It's not loud, not bustling. It's a slow finishing of tasks, an arranging of tools for tomorrow, a last check that everything is where it needs to be. You see a doorway where a wooden frame holds strips of cloth hung to dry. Another doorway reveals a low table with small pieces of metal laid out in rows, pins, clasps, tiny rings, glinting faintly under lamplight like sleeping insects. Someone moves past you carrying a shallow tray. On the tray, small items wrapped in cloth, perhaps newly made, perhaps being delivered. They keep their head down, steps quiet, and as they pass, they angle their tray slightly inward so it doesn't bump you in the narrow lane. Another small kindness disguised as habit. The alley walls are close enough to catch and return heat and scent. You smell baked bread cooling somewhere, the wheat sweetness braided with smoke. You smell something sharp and clean, maybe vinegar, maybe crushed herbs used for washing. And under it all, faintly, you catch the animal note of leather again, like a distant drumbeat. It's not unpleasant. It's simply honest. It belongs to a city that makes things from bodies and plants and sea. You pass a workshop front where the door is open just enough to show a slice of interior, a bench, a hanging strap, a pile of shavings. The lamp inside throws a soft oval onto the ground, and you can't help stepping into it for a moment, letting it warm your face. Your eyes feel heavy now, and you let them half close as you stand in that light. For a second, you could be someone who belongs here. Someone who has a place to put their hands. Someone whose day ends with arranging tools, not scrolling into oblivion. You continue, and the lanes guide you like shallow canals. They twist, they narrow, they open again. The walls are plastered in places, revealing patches where repairs were made, where old cracks were filled. A city is a living thing, constantly patched. You wonder gently if you could treat yourself the same way, less judgment, more repair. A crack is not a failure, it's a note on a long lifespan. At a corner, a small shrine sits in a niche, different from the Seattle niches, more domestic. A little lamp burns behind a protective screen. A bundle of dried herbs hangs nearby. The smell is soothing, something like rosemary, though you don't name it. You just let it settle. The shrine is not flashy. It's a reminder that people here keep multiple layers of safety, harbor discipline, trade counting, and small household rituals. The city is built like a nest. You walk past a courtyard where a shallow basin catches water. The basin reflects lamplight and trembling lines, and you're reminded of the harbor's inner ring. Water repeats itself in this city. See water in the crescent, clean water in courtyards, water in bowls by doorways. Everywhere, a reflective surface to calm your thoughts. Carthage seems to know you're the type to stare at something simple until your brain quiets down. The tannery scent grows slightly stronger as you move. Not yet sharp, not yet close. Just a suggestion that you're nearing the artisan lane's rougher heart. And you realize you're not resisting it. Earlier, you might have turned away, thinking, I don't want unpleasant smells. But tonight you're in a different mode. Tonight, you're following the city's full honesty. Beauty at the harbor, yes, but also labor inland. Soft lamplight, yes, but also the work that makes leather and rope and sails. You pass another doorway where a pair of sandals sits neatly by the threshold, toes pointing outward as if ready for morning. Something about that small detail makes your throat tighten, not in sadness, but in tenderness. Someone here expects tomorrow. Someone here trusts routine enough to lay out footwear. It's such a modest act of faith. Your path narrows again, and the walls press in with warmth. You hear a faint drip from somewhere, a slow, patient sound, and it becomes your new metronome. You follow it unconsciously, deeper into the lanes, toward the quarter where hides are cured and softened, where stubborn material is turned into something that can bend without breaking. And as you step into that direction, the harbor's salt fades behind you like a receding dream, replaced by the city's inland heartbeat, warm stone, lamplight, and the steady, quiet work of hands. The smell reaches you before the place fully reveals itself. It arrives in layers. First a sharpness that pinches lightly at the back of your throat, then a damp animal note, then something earthy like crushed bark and wet soil. It's not a scent that tries to seduce you. It's a scent that tells the truth. And because you're already in the harbor's mood of honesty, you don't flinch. You simply slow down, letting your body adjust, letting your mind accept that a city's beauty isn't only the parts that photograph well. The lane widens into a working courtyard with low walls. Lanterns hang from hooks, their flames protected, casting a warm, steady glow that takes the edge off the scene. In that light, you see the tannery for what it is, a place of transformation. Not magic, work. Not mystery, process. Hides become leather here the way raw worry becomes calm when you handle it properly, step by step, without panic. Along one wall, wooden frames hold stretched hides like pale banners. They're taut, edges pegged, surfaces uneven in texture, some still showing the faint map of the animal's life. The sight is strangely humbling. There is no pretending here. Bodies were bodies. Material is material. Now it becomes something durable enough to outlast a season. In the center of the yard, vats sit half buried in the ground, circular openings with dark liquid inside. The liquids are different shades, some near black, some tea brown, some cloudy, some with a thin film that catches lamp light. You can't see their bottoms. They look like wells into another kind of time, the slow time required for soaking and curing. The rims of the vats are stained and worn where hands have leaned in 1,000 times, where buckets have been set down, where tools have scraped. Near the vats, piles of bark are stacked in baskets, tan and reddish strips, rough-edged. The bark smells cleanly bitter, like trees surrendering their toughness. You recognize it as the scent you caught earlier, drifting through the lanes. Here it's stronger, richer, almost comforting in its own way. It is the perfume of effort. A figure moves at the edge of the yard, carrying a rake-like tool. They pause at a vat and stir slowly, not splashing, not rushing, just coaxing the liquid to move. The motion is hypnotic. Stir, pause. It reminds you of the harbor's water, but thicker, heavier, more stubborn. The rhythm settles into your chest like a steady hand. You step carefully, avoiding puddles that shine too darkly. The ground is damp in places, hardened in others, marked by footprints and dragged tools. You can tell this is a place where people know exactly where to step, where to place weight, where to keep their balance. And you, a visitor in your own dreamy mind, follow the quiet guidance that appears without words. Someone sets down a shallow tray near a bench. On the tray are tools, scrapers with curved edges, brushes made from stiff fibers, a knife with a handle dark from use. A cloth lies folded beside them, ready to wipe hands. Everything is arranged with that same harbor competence. Procedures built not to impress, but to prevent accidents and reduce waste. The tannery may be rougher than the quay, but it is not chaotic. It is a system. The odor sharpens briefly as you pass a corner where older residues cling, where water sits longer, where scraps were piled earlier. It tugs your face into a reflexive grimace, and you catch yourself. Ah, there you are. The part of you that wants to reject anything uncomfortable, as if discomfort is a personal insult. You let the grimace soften, not forcing a smile, just letting your muscles relax. The smell is intense, yes, but it isn't attacking you. It's simply existing, like your own tiredness, like your own messy emotions. They don't need to be banished, they need to be handled. A worker crosses the yard carrying a bucket. The bucket sloshes, but the person's steps remain steady, practiced. They pause near a vat and pour slowly, letting the liquid merge without a splash. Then they glance your way, not as a challenge, more as a check, and gesture subtly with the bucket's handle toward a safer strip of ground. You take the hint and step onto the firmer path, avoiding the slick patch you didn't notice. Again, kindness delivered as practical instruction. You move closer to a bench where a hide lies over a wooden beam. Its surface looks damp but not dripping, and a brush strokes across it in slow passes, loosening residue. The strokes are methodical. Down, lift, down, lift. The brush makes a soft rasping sound that feels oddly satisfying, like someone cleaning a dusty bookshelf in your brain. You watch long enough for your eyelids to droop, then you blink yourself back, not wanting to miss the lesson in the movement. Beside the bench, a basket holds strips of leather already finished, rolled into neat coils, edges smooth, color deep into a warm brown. Someone's fingers, thickened by work, run along the strip, checking its flexibility. The strip bends without cracking. It yields without tearing. You feel an unexpected surge of admiration, not for some dramatic heroism, but for the quiet mastery of turning stubbornness into softness. The tannery quarter is full of this paradox. It is harsh in material, gentle in method. It smells sharp, yet the actions are calm. It deals with raw bodies, yet it produces something that becomes protective and elegant. Leather becomes straps, sandals, belts, coverings, things that hold and support. The thought lands with a soft thud. Your own rough experiences, if processed slowly and properly, can become something useful. Not pretty, maybe, but strong, flexible, able to bear weight. You wander toward the frames along the wall. In lamplight, the hides look like pale landscapes, ridges, patches, slight variations in tone. You imagine the artisan who will later cut these into precise shapes, stamp them, stitch them. The future is being prepared here in wet, bitter stages. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. The kind that keeps a city from falling apart. A faint breeze enters the courtyard and moves through the hanging hides. They sway slightly, creaking at their pegs. The motion is slow and eerie for a second, like a room of quiet ghosts, but the lantern light keeps it grounded. You can hear water dripping somewhere, steady as before. The breeze carries bark scent toward you again, and it softens the sharper notes. The air becomes more bearable, more balanced. You pass a low trough where water runs thinly, used for rinsing. The water is not perfectly clear, but it moves, and movement always feels cleaner than stagnation. You watch it for a moment, mesmerized. Your thoughts, too, are moving now, not looping. The city's processes are doing something to you. You're being tanned, in a way, soaked in steady rhythms, brushed clean of frantic edge. You reach the far side of the tannery yard where the lane continues inward. The smell remains, but your body has adapted. Your breathing is slower. Your shoulders are softer. You can tolerate reality without needing to escape it. That, quietly, is a kind of victory. And as you step out of the courtyard and back into the narrow lanes, the tannery's lights behind you glow like embers, marking a place where roughness is not feared, only shaped. You move deeper into the tannery quarter, and the lanes begin to feel like they've been built around patience itself. Narrow walls, low doorways, courtyards that open and close like slow breaths. The work here refuses speed the way a stubborn knot refuses to untie when you yank it. Everything insists on being handled properly, and somehow that insistence makes you calmer rather than annoyed. You've spent enough time with your own life trying to rush what can't be rushed. Here, the city quietly corrects you. A side lane leads you into a smaller workspace, more sheltered than the open yard. The smell is still present, but filtered, less raw, more like the aftertaste of a long process. Lanterns sit on brackets along the wall, their flames steady. The light falls across benches and beams, across hanging straps and folded cloths, across bowls of oil that gleam like dark honey. This is the finishing area, the place where the hide becomes something you'd actually want to touch. You pause at the threshold, letting your eyes take it in. You can almost sense a sequence without anyone needing to explain it. Rinse, scrape, dry, soften, oil, stretch, cut, stamp. The steps line up in your mind like the harbor's roped lanes, an invisible structure that prevents panic. Your own thoughts seem to settle into that structure, grateful to be guided. A worker passes close, carrying a folded cloth and a small jar. They don't stop, but they angle their shoulders slightly, creating space for you to move in behind them without bumping. Then they set the jar on a shelf and begin wiping down a strip of leather with slow, firm strokes. No rush, no fuss. Just the calm certainty that the leather will respond if treated with consistency. You drift along the wall, watching hands do what they've learned to do over years. At one bench, a hide is draped over a rounded beam. A scraper moves across it, not aggressively, but decisively. The tool's edge peels away residue and thin curls. The sound is soft, scrape, scrape, pause, like a steady metronome made of friction. Your eyelids grow heavier. You let them. You blink slowly, like a cat in a warm spot, and your body begins to trust the rhythm. At another bench, rinsed leather hangs in strips, dripping faintly into a trough below. The drops fall with a patient, deliberate timing, plip, 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 each one a reminder that time can be measured in small, manageable units. You don't have to survive the whole week at once. You only have to survive one drop at a time. A bowl sits nearby filled with oil. The surface reflects lamplight and slow waves. Someone dips fingers into the oil and rubs it into the leather with circular motions, working it into the fibers. The leather darkens, becoming richer, more alive. The smell shifts too, less sharp, more warm, like wood and earth. You inhale and feel the scent ground you the way pine tar did at the slipways. Different ingredients, same effect. The world saying, here's something real you can hold on to. You watch the workers' hands. They press, release, as if persuading the leather to loosen its fear of tearing. The leather yields under pressure, becoming supple. You think, without forcing it, of your own body, how you hold tension like armor, how you forget armor becomes a prison. The hands don't fight the leather. They don't demand immediate softness. They coax it. You let that thought land like a gentle reprimand. Maybe you don't need to fight yourself either. Maybe you need to coax. Along one wall, finished pieces are stacked, rolled straps, folded sheets, small cut shapes bundled with twine. Each bundle is stamped with a mark. The stamp is simple but crisp, pressed into the surface with confidence. You notice a block on a bench with a carved symbol, used for stamping. Someone lifts the block and tests it against the scrap, aligning it carefully. They don't slam it. They place it, press firmly, hold for a breath, then release. The impression appears clean and centered. You feel a tiny internal satisfaction, as if your own mind just got stamped back into alignment. There's a small basin of water set aside for washing hands. The water is cloudy, but it's changed frequently enough to remain useful. A cloth hangs beside it, wrung out and ready. The worker wipes their hands, then returns to the oil. No grand gestures, just maintenance. Over and over. Like refilling the lamp at the sea-idle niche, like recoiling rope on the quay. Care is a repeated act, not a one-time achievement. You follow the line of benches and notice a rack of stretching frames, wooden rectangles with pegs along their edges. Pieces of leather are laced onto the frames and pulled taut, then left to rest. The leather holds tension the way you hold tension, but here the tension is purposeful. It's shaping. It's controlled. It will be released at the right time. You stare at a frame for longer than you mean to, and in that stillness you feel your own breath slow even more, as if you're being stretched into a calmer shape. A faint sound reaches you, a soft tapping from somewhere behind a wall. Not loud, not urgent. Tap, 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 like someone finishing a small task, perhaps setting rivets or working a clasp. The sound adds another layer to the lullaby of work. Scrape, drip, rub, tap. A city putting itself to bed. You step closer to a bench where small tools are laid out in a deliberate order. Awls, needles, a spool of thread, a strip of wax for conditioning the thread. The wax smells faintly sweet. Someone draws the thread across the wax with a smooth motion, coating it. Then they stitch two pieces together with steady, even pulls. The stitches form a neat line, each one identical in spacing, identical in intention. Your mind, which loves to wander, finds comfort in identical intention. It's like watching the moon's reflection remain whole despite ripples. The leather being stitched is thick, but pliable. The needle goes through with effort, but not struggle. That balance, effort without struggle, feels like the entire lesson of the tannery quarter distilled into one motion. You let the concept settle in your bones. You can work hard without whipping yourself. You can press through resistance without turning it into a personal war. A small tray is set aside with stamped pieces, thin tags that will be tied to bundles, marking origin, quality, count. Someone checks each tag, then stacks them neatly. The act is so calm it borders on hypnotic. Your mind begins to drift at the edges. You feel that familiar tug, sleep calling softly from behind your eyes. You don't resist it. You just keep walking slowly, letting the scene continue to wash over you. Then, a tiny problem shows itself in the gentlest way. A strip on a stretching frame has loosened at one peg. It's not dramatic. It's just slightly slack. But in this quarter, slight slack matters. A worker notices immediately. They don't frown. They don't curse the universe. They simply lift the peg, adjust the lacing, pull the strip taut again, and set the peg back. The leather returns to shape. The world continues. You feel your body learn from that too. Your own slack moments, your tired mistakes, don't need drama. They need a quiet adjustment. When you step back into the lane, the finishing room's warmth clings to you. Your clothes seem to carry the scent of oiled leather and bark, grounding you like an invisible cloak. The harbor's salt is far behind now, but its discipline remains inside you, fused with the tannery's patience. You move forward calmer, shaped by steady hands you never spoke to, guided by a city that teaches without lecturing. You step out of the finishing room with that pleasant heaviness in your limbs, the kind that says your body is finally cooperating with nighttime. The lanes receive you again with warm stone and narrow walls. The tannery quarter hums quietly behind you, still scraping and dripping and rubbing itself into tomorrow. You're almost ready to simply wander, to let the city cradle you without any plot at all. But Carthage has other plans, the way a cat has plans when it decides your lap is not optional. A small disturbance appears, not loud, not dramatic, just a slight change in the way people move. You notice it first in the pattern of feet. Earlier, steps had been steady, purposeful, unhurried. Now you see a few figures crossing a lane twice, then pausing at a doorway, then turning back. Not frantic. Just searching. A lamp is raised and angled toward a bench, then toward the ground, then toward a shelf. Someone touches the edge of a table and checks beneath it with the back of a hand, as if feeling for something that should be there. The gestures are quiet, but the intention is clear. A small item is missing, and missing things matter in a city built on order. You follow the subtle current of attention toward a sheltered work area near the tannery's edge, close enough that leather and bark scents still cling, but far enough that the air feels less sharp. Here, bundles of finished leather are stacked on low pallets, tied and tagged. A rope runs along the wall with loops for hanging tools. A board rests nearby, ready for marks and counts. The scene is tidy. Almost too tidy. Like a desk you just cleaned and now can't find the one thing you actually need. On a bench lies a small wooden box open. Inside, you see the impression of something that used to sit there. A shallow oval in the lining, a ring mark, a faint smear of wax. That empty shape is oddly loud. It tells you the missing item had weight, had importance. Not because it was valuable in gold, but because it was valuable in function. You recognize the problem through the harbor's earlier language of tally and seal. An official seal, something used to mark a shipment as approved, counted, verified. Without it, bundles can't leave smoothly. Without it, the harbor's competent calm risks becoming a knot of delay. And in a place like this, delays have teeth. Not violent teeth, bureaucratic ones. The kind that chew time. No one announces the crisis. No one runs. Instead, the searching becomes systematic. One person checks the bench. Another checks the shelf. Another checks the floor near the pallets. A hand lifts a bundle and looks beneath it, then sets it back in the exact same position. Even the act of searching preserves order. You feel an odd admiration for that. In your own life, when you can't find something, you tend to become the storm. You kick up thoughts. You accuse yourself. You spiral into unrelated regrets. Here, the city surges like a calm tide, methodical, returning again and again without panic. You step closer, careful not to intrude. But you're already part of the scene in the way a quiet observer becomes part of a room simply by being there. Someone glances your way, not with suspicion, but with that practical attention you've come to recognize. A new set of eyes might notice what tired eyes miss. They tilt a lamp downward, letting its light sweep the ground near your feet, inviting you into the search without asking you to speak. You accept the invitation with your body, not your voice. You look. The ground is uneven stone, patched in places. There are small cracks where dust collects. There are dark stains from water and oil. If a small object fell, it could nestle into a crack and vanish into shadow. You let your gaze soften, like you're trying to spot a sleeping animal rather than a lost tool. You scan the edges of light, not the centers. That's where hidden things like to live. Nothing obvious appears. No sudden glint. No neat solution. So you widen your search, letting your mind follow the seal's possible path the way you followed the harbor's roped lanes. If it was used to mark bundles, it was likely handled near the bench. It might have been placed down. It might have been pocketed. It might have been set onto a tray. It might have rolled. You check the bench's underside with your eyes, leaning slightly. You see a dried smear of wax at one corner, suggesting the seal was pressed there recently. The wax is still slightly tacky at the center, as if not fully cooled. That suggests the seal was used not long ago. The search is fresh. The loss is recent. Good. Recent things are easier to trace. Your attention catches on a thin trail, barely visible, like a line of fine-grained dust, or perhaps bark powder, scattered along the stone from the pallets toward the lane. It's not dramatic evidence. It's the kind of trace you'd normally ignore. But tonight you're tuned to small things. Tonight you're a person who notices rope ends tucked in properly and oil rubbed in circles. You notice the trace. You follow it slowly, step by step, like tracking a shy creature. The trace leads out of the sheltered area into the lane, where foot traffic has already blurred it. Still, you catch intermittent specks in the cracks. You continue scanning low, letting the lamplight guide your eyes. At the corner, the lane bends. A small gutter runs along the wall, carrying rinse water from the tannery. If the seal slipped and rolled, it might have rolled toward the gutter. You crouch slightly and peer along the edge. Water glints faintly. The smell here is damp bark and old stone. You look for a metallic shine, for a shape that doesn't belong. Nothing. You stand and keep moving, letting the search expand into the artisan lanes. This is the tricky part. The city is full of objects, and night makes everything a cousin of shadow. But the harbor taught you not to panic. The tannery taught you to handle roughness with patience. You can do this like a ritual. You walk past the doorway where cloth hangs to dry, and you glance at the ground beneath it. You pass a bench where small metal pieces are laid out in rows, and you check if any new object lies among them. You pass a shallow basin in a courtyard and watch its reflection for a foreign glint. You begin to feel like the city itself is a giant desk, and you're the person calmly retracing steps, not to punish yourself, but to restore order. A faint mark catches your eye near the base of a wall, an imprint in dust, as if something circular was set down briefly. Next to it, a small smear of wax. Your heartbeat lifts a fraction. This feels closer. The smear is fresh enough to shine slightly in lamplight. You follow the wall, eyes low. Then you see it, not the seal itself, but a clue to its route. A piece of cloth lies near a doorway, rumpled. On it, a faint wax spot. Someone may have set the seal on the cloth, then lifted the cloth and carried it away. Or the seal got wrapped inadvertently. Either way, the seal likely moved with fabric. You stand still for a moment, letting your mind settle into this new direction. Not frantic. Not triumphant. Just focused. The seal didn't vanish. It traveled. And travel leaves traces. You turn your attention toward the places where cloth and bundles move at night. Toward the lanes where trays are carried, where deliveries happen, where quiet hands transport finished goods. You remember the figure earlier with a tray wrapped in cloth, passing carefully to avoid bumping you. You remember how they angled the tray inward. You remember how the city's kindness often looks like practical movement. You begin to understand what you're doing now. You're not just helping find a seal. You're participating in Carthage's larger ritual, keeping the system intact so that tomorrow can arrive smoothly, like sandals laid neatly by a threshold. You take a slow breath. Salt and tar are far behind. Bark and oil are around you. And somewhere in these lanes, tucked into cloth or shadow, the missing seal waits to be noticed. You keep your eyes low and you're thinking slower than usual, like you're trying not to spook the answer. The artisan lanes around you don't change their mood for your small mission. They continue being themselves: warm stone, narrow turns, domestic lamplight. And that's useful. A calm environment makes a calm search possible. You let the city's steadiness do half your work. If the seal traveled with cloth, then cloth is now your map. Cloth leaves traces the way ships leave wake. Not always obvious, but present if you stop rushing long enough to see. You start with the simplest evidence: stains. In these lanes, stains are a language. Oil darkens stone in slow halos. Water leaves pale edges as it dries. Bark dye can tint a patch reddish-brown. Brine from the harbor leaves a faint crystalline sparkle when it dries. You look for something out of place. Wax smears, circular imprints, a small glint where a metal ring caught lamp light and then rolled away. Near a corner, you find a shallow smear that looks like damp brine dragged across stone. It's not much, just a slightly darker line, like someone's wet sandal soles skated for a moment. But the smell is faintly saline. Harbor brine, not tannery rinse. That matters. It means someone came here recently from the quay, or at least from a place where brine is common. And the seal you're looking for belongs to harbor authority, something that might be handled by someone moving between harbor and artisan lanes. You follow that saline hint the way you followed grain dust earlier, not expecting a straight line, but trusting that small things cluster. The brine smear fades, but then you catch another sign, a faint scattering of salt crystals in a crack. They sparkle under lamp light like a tiny constellation. You kneel slightly to get the angle right, because sometimes the answer is not hidden, just poorly lit. No seal yet. But the salt tells you you're not wandering blind. You keep walking until the lanes open into a modest working pocket where water is used, an area with basins, cloth, and a trough for rinsing. It's not the tannery's main yard, but it's adjacent. People here rinse tools, white hands, clean cloths used for oiling and stamping. The air smells like damp stone and faint vinegar. A cloth is draped over a line, dripping slowly. Beneath it, the ground is darkened by water, and the dark patch spreads like a quiet bruise. You look beneath the dripping cloth. A small puddle shimmers. It would be the perfect place for a metal ring to disappear into reflection. You hold your breath and scan. Nothing. You straighten and let your attention shift to knots. Knots are another language in this city. You've seen rope coiled properly at the quay, ends tucked. You've seen leather laced onto stretching frames with calm tension. Here, cloth bundles are often tied, and the way they're tied can tell you how they moved. A hurried knot looks different than a practiced one. A knot made for carrying looks different than a knot made for sealing. On a low bench sits a bundle wrapped in cloth, tied with twine. The knot is neat, centered, the ends trimmed short. This is not a bundle someone grabbed in a rush. This is a bundle prepared. It likely has a tag. And tags are often stamped. You don't touch the bundle, because you're not here to steal someone's work in the name of solving a problem. Instead, you look for the tag, a small strip of leather or a piece of cloth, marked, tied near the knot. You see a tag, yes, pressed flat against the bundle. But the mark on it is not the crisp stamp you saw earlier. It's more like a simple scratch. Not harbor authority. Not official. So you move on. Timing becomes your next tool. The wax smear you saw was still tacky. That means the seal was used recently. The seal likely traveled shortly after stamping. It might have been set down, then carried with cloth, then forgotten, then moved again. The movement would follow the night's delivery patterns, finished leather prepared, bundles tagged, perhaps carried to a staging point closer to the harbor for morning transport. That suggests the seal might now be near a place where bundles are gathered, an edge zone between tannery and quay. You turn toward the direction that smells a touch more like resin and salt. The air shifts as you move, less vinegar, more sea. The lanes widen slightly. You see fewer household doors, more work doors, storage rooms, sheds, covered platforms. This is a corridor of exchange. Along one wall, you find a stack of cloths folded neatly on a shelf. They're the kind used for wiping oil, cleaning tools, wrapping small items. The folds are precise, but one cloth at the top is slightly misaligned, as if it was grabbed and then returned in a hurry. That misalignment is a small scream in a city of neatness. You lean in and look at the cloth's corner. There is a wax smear. Fresh. Pale. The kind left by an object pressed briefly against fabric. Your pulse lifts again, but you keep your face calm. Your body wants to celebrate early. You don't let it. You follow the evidence. You examine the shelf beneath. In the shadow of the cloth stack, something glints faintly, not a full shine, just a hint of metal catching lamp light. You angle yourself to get a better view, and the glint becomes clearer. A small ring. A little loop. Possibly part of the seal's handle. But you can't see the whole object. The shelf's lip blocks it. It might have rolled behind. It might be wedged. You consider reaching in, then pause. You're not alone here. There are people moving, working. Taking something without being sure could create a different problem. So you shift tactics again, confirmation through pattern. If the seal ended up here, other items related to stamping might also be nearby. Wax, tags, a stylus, a tally board. You glance around. On a nearby bench, there's a small pot with wax residue, still warm enough to smell. Beside it, a flat block used for stamping sits on a cloth. This area is used for marking bundles before they head toward the harbor. You've found the right neighborhood. You step back and look at the ground near the shelf. A few tiny flakes of wax have fallen there, pale against dark stone. A faint circular imprint shows where a seal might have been set down briefly. The evidence clusters now, and clusters are reliable. You're not chasing a single line, you're standing inside a small constellation. A person passes close, carrying a shallow tray of leather tags. The tags are stacked neatly, each one ready for marking. As they pass, the corner of their tray brushes the shelf lightly, barely. But it makes the top cloth shift again. The misalignment grows. The cloth corner slips over the shelf edge. And as it slips, the object behind it becomes more visible. You catch the shape fully now, a small seal tool with a ring handle, metal dulled by use, a face that would press into wax. It's tucked behind the cloth stack as if it was placed there temporarily, and then forgotten. It's not hidden on purpose. It's hidden by routine. Someone used it, set it down, just for a moment, then got pulled into the next task. The seal slid back behind folded fabric, and the city's neatness swallowed it. You feel a soft satisfaction, not triumphant, just relieved. This is a problem with a gentle solution: notice. Retrieve. Restore order. No blame. No drama. Just the harbor's way. You don't grab it yet. You let your eyes scan the area once more, confirming there's no other critical piece missing, no tags scattered, no wax spilled. Everything else is in place. The system is intact. Only this one small tool drifted into shadow. You stand in the lamplight, feeling the difference between your old self and your current self. Old you would have panicked, cursed your memory, turned the search into a personal failure. Current you simply followed stains, knots, and timing. You let the city's calm teach your nerves how to behave. The seal waits behind the cloth, glinting faintly. You're close enough now that the solution feels inevitable. Like a boat settling into its berth. Like a rope coil returning to its peg. Like a lamp flame steadying itself after a gust. You shift your weight and prepare to bring the seal back into the open, to let tomorrow's shipments move without friction. And you do it with the same quiet respect you've been practicing all night. No drama, only care. You slide the top cloth aside with the gentleness of someone handling sleep itself, and the seal tool comes free without protest. Metal cool, edges faintly tacky where wax has kissed it, weighty in a way that feels responsible rather than heavy. You lift it out of the shelf's shadow and hold it in the lamplight for one quiet breath, letting the ring handle catch a dull glint, letting the face of the stamp remain clean and unquestioned. Then you do the most radical thing imaginable. You don't make a scene. You set the seal on the bench beside the wax pot, not on bare wood where it could roll, but on a folded cloth. Because you've learned tonight that order isn't a personality trait, it's a habit you practice when you're tired. You tuck the cloth stack back into alignment, corners squared, the top piece no longer slipping like a secret. A small correction, and the whole shelf looks innocent again. The nearby workers notice anyway. They always notice. This city is built on noticing. A lamp angles toward your hands. A searching pattern, cross, pause, check, return, softens into a steadier flow, like water settling after a pebble. No one rushes you. No one snatches. Instead, a hand appears with the small wooden box you saw earlier, open and ready, as if the box itself is relieved to remember its purpose. You place the seal into the box and watch the fit. The lining's shallow oval accepts it like a boat returning to its berth. The lid closes with a soft, final sound. The problem is solved, but Carthage doesn't live on. Solved. It lives on trust, and trust has its own maintenance schedule. So you begin walking back toward the edge of water, carrying the box close to your body. The lanes guide you outward, and the air shifts gradually from bark and oil to resin and salt. As you move, you notice how the city handles the aftertaste of a mistake, not with punishment, but with verification. Bundles of leather are checked, tags straightened, knots examined, wax marks inspected for crispness. Not because anyone suspects a villain, but because the harbor's calm depends on confirming what is true. You reach a staging spot where finished bundles sit in orderly stacks, tied and ready. A lamp is lifted to illuminate the wax seals, small ovals, each bearing an impression that means counted, approved, not a surprise. Hands move with a careful rhythm, touch the tag, read the imprint by angle and feel, set it back. Their motions are quiet negotiations with uncertainty, agreeing, again and again, that tomorrow will be allowed to happen without friction. The sound of water returns, faint at first, then clearer. The crescent war harbor reappears like a remembered breath. Stone underfoot smooths. Lamps become more uniform. The night air cools slightly, and you feel it on your cheeks like a clean cloth. Geometry takes over again, rope lanes, posts, rings, places where things belong. A coil of rope sits exactly where you saw it earlier. An oar rests in its rack with the same disciplined straightness. A watcher's shielded lantern blinks once, more a confirmation than a question, movement noticed, pattern understood. You arrive at the edge zone where tally boards and approvals live, the place where a missing seal becomes a real delay instead of a small inconvenience. Authority is present here, but it isn't loud. It's the authority of accurate marks, of ledgers kept dry, of hands that don't tremble when they count. A lamp shifts toward the box you carry. A stylus pauses above a board. And you realize this is the only kind of spotlight the harbor ever uses. Light aimed at work. No words are needed. You set the box down on a flat surface that won't wobble. The lid opens. The seal sits inside, ordinary and unromantic, like it never caused anyone an extra heartbeat. The person who receives it checks the face of the stamp, turning it slightly to catch the light, confirming there's no grit, no nicked edge, no bent ring. Then they press it once into a scrap of softened wax, not for show, but for proof. The impression appears crisp. The wax cools quickly in the night air, holding the mark like a small cool promise. This is where the negotiation happens, between suspicion and routine, between the fear of loss and the discipline of procedure. You watch the harbor choose procedure. The box closes again. The seal is placed in a designated spot, exactly there, always there, so it cannot wander behind folded cloth like a shy animal. A notch is added to the tally board. A tag on a bundle is smoothed. A knot is tightened by a finger's width. Nothing about it is dramatic, and that's the point. Reputation here isn't defended by speeches. It's defended by the way you keep objects from disappearing, by the way you correct small drift before it becomes a storm. You stand for a moment at the quay's edge, letting the basin's mooncoin reflection settle your eyes. You feel a quiet satisfaction that has nothing to do with heroism. You didn't conquer anything. You simply helped the city return to itself. And in doing that, you let your own mind return to itself too, less scattered, more aligned, like rope recoiled neatly, like oars set straight, like a lamp flame steady behind its shield. With the seal restored and the harbor's truss retightened, you let your feet drift along the quay again, toward those stone niches where small sea idols wait in their patient shadows, because the night, apparently, still has one more gentle lesson for you. You find yourself returning to the niches as if your feet have been quietly making decisions while your mind floats behind them. The harbor's order is restored. The seal sits where it belongs, warm wax holding a crisp impression like a satisfied exhale. That should be the end of it. Problem solved. System intact. Sleep pending. And yet the niches draw you back with their small, steady gravity. Not because you're suddenly a different person with a dramatic spiritual awakening. Relax. You're still you. But you spent the last hour learning that the city's calm lives in tiny places. A knot, a peg, a folded cloth corner. The niches are tiny places. They're the harbor's little pockets for what people can't hold in their hands all day. Also, you have a theory now. Not a loud theory, not the kind you'd announce with confidence, and then embarrass yourself later. A gentle theory. The kind you test quietly, as if you're checking whether a sleeping child is still breathing. You walk along the quay until the wall's carved recesses appear again, repeating at intervals like soft punctuation. Lamplight pools near each one. Shadows deepen inside them. And as you approach, you begin to see details you missed before, not because they weren't there, but because you weren't tuned to the right frequency. Tonight, your eyes have learned to look for drift. Your attention has learned to see how a thing can slip away without malice, how an object can disappear into habit. You stop at a niche with a small dish of salt. The salt crystals sparkle faintly. You notice, near the back of the dish, a smudge where the salt looks slightly compacted, as if something round pressed into it, and then was removed. You lean closer. The smudge is not fresh, but not ancient either. A shallow ring in salt. It makes you pause. Your theory whispers, sometimes missing things don't get lost, they get offered. Not intentionally, not ritually, but accidentally, in the way people tuck objects into the nearest safe pocket when their mind is full. A niche is a safe pocket. A tiny altar. A place where people place what matters and what comforts. And when you're tired, your hand might treat your tools like worries. Set them down in the nearest place that feels meaningful, then walk away. You move to the next niche. Inside it, a small shell stands upright beside a dark carved figure. At the base, you see a coin pressed into wax. The wax looks old, but the coin looks polished at its edge, as if it has been touched recently. Someone's fingers, absent-mindedly checking. You smile faintly, just a small shift in your mouth that says, yes, humans are like this. They touch tokens when they don't know what else to do. You continue. In one niche, a strip of leather is tied around an idol's base. The knot is neat. The leather's edge is worn. You think again of the missing seal behind folded cloth. Not hidden. Just set down. For a moment, then swallowed by routine. The niches are like that too. People set down fear, set down hope, set down gratitude. For a moment, and then the moments stack into a life. A breeze slides along the quay and pushes the lamp flames slightly. Shadows flicker inside the recesses, making the idol's forms seem to shift. Your tired mind leans into the illusion for a second, like, yes, the stone guardians are alive and breathing and judging your sleep schedule. Then you let the thought drift away, amused. Gentle sarcasm is your way of keeping wonder from becoming melodrama. You stop at a niche you didn't study before. It's deeper than the others, and inside, tucked back, is a small bundle of cloth. Not a full bundle, more like a folded scrap, tied with twine. It doesn't look like a standard offering. It looks practical. Like someone tucked it here because it would stay dry and safe. Your heart does a small, curious lift. You don't reach in. You simply look, letting your lamplit eyes trace its outline. There's a faint dark spot on the cloth, wax perhaps. Your theory strengthens. These niches aren't only altars. They're also storage in a city that runs on small, portable things. A place to put a token, a coin, a charm, a piece of leather, a scrap of cloth. A place to keep something close to the sea's guardians. You move on and find another oddity, a small wooden peg resting in a corner, like it fell out of someone's pocket. It's harmless. It's not officially part of the niche's offerings. But it's there, and it's been there long enough to collect a dusting of salt. Someone placed it, forgot it, or decided it belonged there. The niche doesn't complain. It simply holds. You think of your own pockets. The way you stuff receipts, hair ties, random coins, a key you swear you'll put somewhere safe later. The niche is the city's pocket. And people, being people, use it for both devotion and convenience. These categories overlap more than anyone likes to admit. You stop again and let yourself simply watch how the niches look in sequence. Dark recess, warm lamp glow, pale salt, shell, leather strip, coin. It's like a necklace along the harbor wall. A calming repetition. Repetition is mercy, you remind yourself again. Your breath slows. The water murmurs. The city hums faintly beyond. A figure approaches, one of the late walkers, carrying a small lamp. They stop at a niche a few spaces away and place a pinch of something, salt or grain, into a dish. Then, with the same hand, they tuck a small object deeper into the recess. A tiny item. It could be a bead, a token, a charm. The movement is quick, practiced, intimate. Your theory gets its final soft confirmation. People use these niches as safe pockets for small, meaningful things. Sometimes those meaningful things are prayers. Sometimes they are just objects you don't want to lose. You don't stare too hard. You respect the privacy of the gesture. But you feel the lesson settle in your chest. Systems don't break because of villains. They break because of tired hands placing things in the wrong pocket. And systems heal not through blame, but through gentle noticing and returning. Your mind drifts back to the missing seal behind folded cloth. Behind cloth, behind habit. It could just as easily have ended up in a niche, tucked beside an idol, held by stone and salt. If it had, it wouldn't have been a sacrilege. It would have been a very human accident. A tool turned into an offering by fatigue. You stand at the quay and let your fingers rest on the stone beneath a niche, where countless other fingers have warmed it. The stone is cool, steady. You imagine leaving something here, not a tool, not a coin, not even a worry, because you don't need a formal ritual. Just a breath. Just the slow exhale you've been practicing all night. You give that exhale to the harbor and feel it echo back in the water's soft lap. Then you turn away from the niches once more, letting your path shift toward the deeper rhythms of the night watch, the lantern routes, the quiet discipline that keeps Carthage safe while it sleeps. You walk away from the niches with that odd, pleasant feeling of having solved something without losing yourself in it. The city holds your attention lightly now, like a hand resting on your shoulder rather than gripping your wrist. The harbor's lamps keep their steady teardrop flames. The water keeps rehearsing its lullaby. And the little drama of the missing seal, already resolved in practice, begins to resolve in your body too, settling into the category of things that happened and didn't ruin everything. You follow the quay back toward the approval area, not because anyone demanded it, but because your own mind wants closure the way a drawer wants to slide shut cleanly. The seal is back in its box. The box is back in its place. The tally mark has been made. Still, the city continues its quiet habit of confirmation. Carthage doesn't trust the feeling of fixed. It trusts the evidence of checked. Near the edge of the platform, you notice a shallow bowl of salt water set on a low stone block. It's the kind of bowl you might have ignored earlier as just another practical object. Now it catches your eye like a small stage, water, waiting to reflect something. The bowl is used for simple tests, rinsing fingers, dampening cloth, smoothing wax, maybe even checking how a seal impression reads under changing angles of light. Salt water is honest that way. It reveals. A worker, quiet, precise, lifts the box and opens it again. The seal is brought out and held above the bowl. The lamp light above makes the metal face glint softly, then fade. The seal is lowered toward the surface, not touching, just hovering, so the reflection shows its details. A small tilt of the wrist, and the impression face becomes clearer in the water's mirror. The salt water holds the image steady, less jittery than the open basin's ripples. It's a calmer mirror contained. You watch this and feel your own mind mirror it, contained, calmer, willing to show you what's real instead of what you fear. A scrap of wax is warmed briefly near a flame, then pressed onto a flat piece of wood. The seal is aligned above it with the kind of care that makes you want to whisper, "Steady, steady," even though no one is speaking. The seal presses down, firm, not violent. It holds for a breath. It lifts away. The mark remains, crisp lines, clean edges, nothing smudged. A small oval of proof. No one celebrates. No one scolds. No one points out where it was found or who might have misplaced it. The absence of blame is almost startling, like walking into a room and realizing the air is cleaner than you expected. The city treats the incident the way it treats a gust of wind, acknowledged, corrected, released. You feel that release spread through you. You didn't even realize you were carrying a leftover tension from the search, the little internal worry that someone would turn it into a bigger problem, turn it into suspicion, turn it into shame. But Carthage's harbor, this disciplined crescent of water and stone, has no taste for unnecessary shame. Shame wastes time. Shame muddies procedure. Shame is inefficient. And this city, above all, prefers efficiency with a human face. The seal is rinsed quickly in the saltwater bowl, just a dip, a swirl, enough to remove stray wax and grit. The water shivers, then stills. The metal emerges cleaner. A cloth wipes it dry with a soft, practiced motion. Then the seal returns to its box, and the lid closes with that satisfying finality again. Drawer shut. Breath complete. You step back slightly, giving space, and let your eyes drift to the bundles stacked nearby. Tags hang neatly. Knots hold. Wax impressions sit like small moons on leather labels. Each mark is a quiet agreement between hands. I did my part. You can do yours. The whole harbor is a chain of agreements, and tonight you witnessed how easily one link can slip, and how gently it can be restored. Your mind, in its sleepy sarcasm, offers a private commentary. Imagine if your own life worked like this. Imagine if you misplaced one small thing and instead of spiraling into self-hatred, you just retraced steps, checked evidence, corrected the drift, and moved on. Wild concept. Borderline revolutionary. You almost laugh, but it comes out as a softened breath through your nose. The night is too gentle for loud laughter. The night prefers small amusements. The lamp flames continue their steady work. The watcher's signals blink faintly at the edges. The harbor's inner basin holds the moon's reflection like a coin no one needs to spend. And the saltwater bowl sits there, calm and practical, as if it too is satisfied. Yes, the mark is clean. Yes, the system can breathe again. You turn your gaze back to the quay and the niches along the wall. The sea idols are just visible in the distance, their recesses deep and dark, their offerings quietly held. You think of the seal behind folded cloth, of the cloth tucked in a niche, of the way tired hands place things in wrong pockets. The thought doesn't make you anxious now. It makes you tender. Humans are messy. Cities are messy. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is gentle correction. And Carthage, tonight, has shown you what gentle correction looks like. Not punishment, but procedure. Not accusation, but confirmation. Not drama, but a bowl of salt water reflecting a clean, crisp mark. With that lesson sealed, literally, you let your feet move onward, toward the routes where the night watch makes its slow circuit, where lanterns drift like low stars, and where the city's safety is maintained by people who understand that quiet attention is the most reliable kind of power. You slip into the night watch route the way you slip into a warm pool, slowly, letting your body adjust, letting the water of routine hold you without asking you to perform. The harbor's busiest corners are calmer now. The supply edge has quieted. The stamping area sits orderly, seal-boxed, wax-cooled, tally marks satisfied. And along the crescent, the watch continues with the same patient rhythm it had before your little problem ever existed, because that's the point of a good system. It keeps breathing even when you have a moment. Lanterns move along the quay in measured intervals, like slow stars that decided to stay near the ground for once. Each lantern is shielded, its flame kept small, disciplined, not to preserve mystery but to preserve night vision. The light doesn't flood. It guides. It reveals hazards without exposing everything. Your mind takes note of this and files it under. Excellent life advice I will probably forget tomorrow but enjoy right now. You walk a respectful distance behind one watcher, not tailing them like a creep, just matching the lane's flow. Their steps are even. Their shoulders are relaxed. Their lamp angles down most of the time, aimed at stone edges, rope lines, damp patches. The harbor's dangers are rarely dramatic. They're slick algae, loose knots, a misplaced tool, a gust that catches a lid. The watch exists to prevent the small harms that accumulate into bigger ones. Your heart softens at that, because it feels like someone finally understands you. Most of your suffering isn't one giant tragedy. It's 1,000 tiny frictions you never addressed until you were raw. A lantern passes the orax, and the pale wood flashes then dims. You remember that earlier correction, one oar shifted into alignment by a finger's width. You see the oars now sitting straight, obedient, like they're proud of themselves. Your tired brain offers a wry thought. Even oars have their act together tonight, so maybe you can stop being so hard on yourself. The route curves along the inner basin. The moon's reflection stretches and reforms with each mild ripple, never fully breaking. The watchers exchange faint signals again, brief, shielded winks of light. It's communication without noise, reassurance without clutter. You realize your body responds to this the way it responds to a clean room. Your breathing becomes deeper because nothing is jumping out to attack you. Safety at its best is boring. At a corner, the watcher slows and scans the waterline. Their lamp catches a patch of algae green sheen, and they shift their footpath slightly, avoiding it. You do the same, grateful for the lesson. In your own life, you keep stepping on the same slippery emotional patch. Same overthinking, same late-night doom scroll, same, I must fix everything now. Panic, and then acting surprised when you fall. Here, avoidance isn't cowardice. It's wisdom. Step around the slick spot. Save your energy for what matters. You pass the carved niches again. The lantern light brushes them, and shadows inside deepen. Offerings sit quietly, salt crystals, shells, leather strips, coins pressed into wax. They look calmer now, as if even the sea idols are satisfied that the harbor's seal is back where it belongs. You almost imagine the niches smugly holding their tiny stone expressions like, "See? We told you. Put things where they belong, and the night stays smooth." The route continues toward the outer curve where the harbor feels more exposed. Here, the breeze is stronger, and the lantern flames flicker slightly behind their shields. The watchers don't fight the wind. They adjust their grip, angle the lanterns, keep moving. The city's safety is not built on refusing weather. It's built on adapting to it. You notice small markers along the path, scratches on stone, pegs, rings. The infrastructure of vigilance. Places where ropes can be tightened, where barriers can be set, where equipment returns after use. The watch checks these markers the way a careful person checks locks before bed. Not obsessively, not fearfully, just as a quiet ritual that allows the mind to relax afterward. One watcher pauses near a stack of coiled rope and runs fingers lightly along the outer loop, checking for fray. The motion is quick and practiced. Then the loop is tucked back. The rope remains neat. You remember your own earlier thought, one small alignment. One loop returned to its peg. You feel a gentle urge to do the same for yourself later. Tidy one corner of your mind, not all of it, just one. As you walk, you begin to see how the watch routes are designed. They pass points of vulnerability at regular intervals. They return often enough that nothing stays unattended for long. The system is built on repetition, and repetition, again, turns out to be mercy. The city repeats its care the way the sea repeats its lap against stone. Over and over. Quietly. Reliably. A gust comes stronger, and the basin ripples. The mooncoin reflection shivers, then reforms. A loose cloth on a nearby stack flutters. A watcher steps over, tucks it in, ties a simple knot. Problem prevented. The motion is so small it almost feels like a magic trick. The chaos appears, then disappears before it can become your problem. You understand, suddenly, why the harbor feels safe. Safety isn't an absence of issues. Safety is quick, calm responses to tiny issues. You feel your eyelids grow heavier again. The lantern light is hypnotic. The routes are loops, and loops lull the brain. Your body wants to follow the watcher like a sleepy child following a parent down a hallway. You let yourself feel that childish comfort for a moment. Being guided is not weakness. Being guided is what tired bodies crave. You pass the supply edge again, now mostly still. The tally boards hang quiet. The wax pot is covered. The seal box rests where it should. Everything looks simpler in the lantern's small light. No big mysteries, just objects in their places. You think of the seal behind folded cloth and feel amused rather than stressed. Of course it was behind cloth. Of course it was something that small. That's how life hides its problems, not in grand caves, but in the folds of routine. The watch route turns back toward the inner basin once more, completing another loop. The lantern ahead of you swings gently, steady as a pendulum. Your breath matches it. Your thoughts slow to the same pace. You feel your body settling into the harbor's rhythm like a boat easing into a berth, rope lines tightening, wood creaking softly into comfort. And as the night watch continues its boring, beautiful work, walking, checking, adjusting, you realize the city is giving you a gift. Not excitement. Not spectacle. A shared, ordinary attention. A reminder that you don't have to guard your whole life alone. Systems exist. People exist. Routines exist. Lanterns can be carried. Light can be shared. You keep walking under those slow stars of flame, letting the crescent hold you, letting your mind finally believe tonight is safe enough to rest. The loops of the watch route begin to feel like the inside of a shell, protective, repeating, designed to keep the soft parts safe. Lanterns drift ahead and behind, and you start to sense the night thinning, not because the sky is brightening yet, but because your body has moved closer to the edge of sleep. You're still walking, still here, but your thoughts are now spaced farther apart, like posts along the quay, enough structure to keep you steady, not enough clutter to trip you. As you pass the supply edge once more, you notice a small change. A low bench has been cleared, and on it sit a few items set aside with intention. Not staged, not presented like prizes, just placed as if someone thought, this might be useful, this might be kind. A strip of finished leather rests there, short, thick, oiled, stamped with a simple mark near one end. The leather smells warm and earthy, a softened version of the tannery's earlier sharpness. It's the smell of patience turned into protection. Next to it sits a small lump of tar or pitch, wrapped in cloth so it won't smear everything it touches. The cloth is tied with a neat knot, the harbor's handwriting. And beside those two is something lighter, a tiny shell, pale, smooth, placed like a modest blessing without needing to pretend it's anything more. You pause, and your mind tries, briefly, to interpret. Are these offerings? Are they leftovers? Are they reminders? Then you realize you don't need to decide. The city doesn't require you to label kindness before you accept it. That's your own exhausting habit, the one that says, don't take anything unless you can justify it. Tonight you're allowed to be simple. A hand nearby adjusts the bench's items slightly, aligning the leather strips so it won't curl, tucking the tar bundles not under so it won't snag. No gesture toward you, no direct presentation. The adjustment alone feels like an invitation, as if the city is saying, if you carry something, carry it properly. If you remember, remember with care. You step closer and let your fingers hover over the leather first. The surface is smooth but not slick, still holding the memory of grain and life. When you touch it, the warmth surprises you. It's been sitting near a lamp. It feels like the stone in the artisan lanes, days' heat stored and offered back slowly. The leather bends slightly under your thumb, then returns, resilient. That flex becomes a message in your hand. You can bend without breaking. You lift it and feel its weight, small, but real. Not symbolic weight. Useful weight. A strap can tie. A strip can patch. A piece can become a tie or a handle. It's a gift that respects practicality, which is the kind of kindness Carthage seems to specialize in. Help that doesn't demand gratitude performance. Then you touch the tar bundle. Even through cloth, you can smell it, pine dark, sharp, grounding. Tar is the harbor's memory of repair. It seals cracks, reinforces joints, keeps water out. It's not pretty. It's necessary. You lift the bundle and feel the slight tackiness pressing through the cloth, reminding you to handle it carefully. You remember the tar pots with weighted lids, the disciplined way even sticky things are contained. Tar is the city's way of saying, it's okay that life is messy, just don't smear it everywhere. The shell is last. You pick it up and it's lighter than you expect, cool and smooth. It fits in your palm perfectly, like it was shaped by sea specifically for tired hands. You run your thumb along its curve and feel the faint ridges, subtle as a whisper. Shells are nothing and everything, a remnant, a container, a piece of sea made portable. It reminds you of the niches, small pockets for small meaningful things. It reminds you that you don't need a grand altar to carry comfort. You only need a pocket and a smooth object to touch when your mind starts sprinting again. You hold the three items together for a moment: leather, tar, shell, and your senses arrange them into anchors. Leather, flexibility. Tar, repair. Shell, calm. You don't force the symbolism. It arrives naturally, the way sleep arrives when you stop chasing it. You tuck the leather strip into your belt area or fold it into your hand, feeling its warmth against your skin. You secure the tar bundle in a way that won't leak, because you've learned tonight that containment is love. And you keep the shell in your palm for now, rolling it gently between your fingers. It becomes your own little private ritual, like the sea idol offerings without the performance. As you begin walking again, you notice how these anchors change your relationship to the night. The harbor's air smells the same. The lanterns move the same. But now you have a tactile connection to the city. It's no longer just scenery you walk through. It's something you carry. Your fingers press the leather and remember the finishing room's slow circular oiling. Your nose catches the tar's sharp sweetness and remembers the slipway's patient readiness. Your thumb traces the shell's ridges and remembers the niche's quiet reassurance. You pass the inner basin and watch the moon's reflection tremble again, still whole. You feel a small tenderness in your throat, the kind that arrives when you realize you're leaving something that held you. The harbor has been a cradle, and you can feel yourself preparing to step out of it. The night watch continues its loops, lanterns still drifting like low stars. You feel less like a visitor now and more like a person who is briefly folded into the city's routines. You think of the missing seal and the way it returned to its place without shame. You think of the tannery's harsh smell and the way it softened into warm leather through patience. You think of the niches holding offerings and stray objects alike, refusing to judge. The city's lesson keeps repeating: care is not dramatic. Care is consistent. You slow near the edge of the quay where the city's lanes begin again. The artisan streets wait inland, warm and narrow. The harbor's crescent stays behind you, calm and disciplined, still holding water in its stone embrace. You take one last look at the curve, letting your eyes follow it like tracing a sleeping face. Then you exhale slowly, the way you've been practicing all night, and let the breath carry a quiet thank you that doesn't need words. You turn toward the lanes with leather warmth, tar sharpness, and shell coolness in your keeping. Small gifts that will outlast the walk, reminders you can touch later when the world feels too loud. You walk away from the Crescent War Harbor the way you walk away from a warm bed before you're ready, slowly, reluctantly, trying not to break the spell with sudden movement. The quay behind you remains lit in disciplined pools. The inner basin keeps its moon-coin reflection, trembling but unbroken. Lanterns continue to drift along their routes, boring and beautiful, doing the quiet work that lets a city sleep without flinching. You carry your small anchors like proof that tonight happened. The leather strip rests against your palm, still warm from lamplight, bending obediently when your fingers press it. The tar bundle sits wrapped and contained, its pine dark scent rising through cloth in tiny, grounding waves. The shell rolls between your thumb and forefinger, smooth ridges whispering the sea's patience into your skin. You don't need to remember every detail of Carthage to keep its effect. You only need these textures. You only need the rhythm your body has already learned, steady, measured kind. As you move into the artisan lanes again, the air changes, less salt, more warm stone and faint smoke. The walls come closer, and the city feels more domestic, more tucked in. Doorways glow softly. Courtyards hold still water that catches lamp light in trembling lines. Somewhere a broom brushes stone in slow strokes, as if the city is sweeping itself toward morning. The sound is gentle enough to be almost imaginary, like a memory you haven't made yet. Your mind tries, out of habit, to summarize the night into something impressive, a tour of a mighty harbor, a brush with sacred niches, a problem solved. But the night refuses to become a highlight reel. It insists on being what it actually was, a sequence of small attentions. A lamp angled to show you a slick patch. An oar nudged into alignment. Wax pressed carefully. A missing seal tucked behind cloth and returned without shame. A bowl of salt water reflecting proof. A strip of leather softened by patience. The city's calm was never one big moment. It was 1,000 small moments refusing to become chaos. You realize quietly that this is how you want your own life to feel. Not constantly thrilling. Not constantly on fire. Simply held. Like the harbor holds water in stone arms. Like a niche holds a small offering without judging it. Like a knot holds a rope without strangling it. You reach a point in the lanes where the harbor's sound becomes fainter, but it doesn't disappear. The sea's lap is still there, softened by distance, like a heartbeat you stop noticing until you listen for it. You pause near a doorway where sandals are lined neatly, toes pointing outward for morning. That small act of faith touches you again, warm and simple. Someone expects tomorrow. Someone trusts routine enough to prepare for it. You feel your throat tighten slightly, not with sadness, but with the tenderness of recognizing a good habit. You let yourself stand still for a moment. You don't rush the farewell. The city has taught you better than that. In your mind, you look back one last time. You see the crescent shape again, that satisfying curve of water and stone. You see the roped lanes, the disciplined lamps, the watchers' quiet winks of light. You see the sea idol niches holding salt and shell and stray human forgetfulness. You see the tannery quarter, sharp and honest, turning rough hide into supple protection through slow care. You see it all as one continuous breath. Inhale, work, exhale, order, inhale, mess, exhale, repair. You don't need to promise you'll be better tomorrow. Promises can be loud. You only need to carry one small alignment forward. One rope recoiled. One lamp refilled. One thought returned to its peg. That is enough for a tired person. That is enough for a human. You begin walking again, and your steps feel softer than when you arrived. Your shoulders are lower. Your jaw is unclenched. Your breath has found its own slow pace without you forcing it. You roll the shell between your fingers and let it become your private signal. You are safe enough to rest. The harbor's crescent fades behind the lanes, but its rhythm stays inside you. And as you move toward the edge of sleep, you let Carthage remain what it has been all night, not a distant ancient city, not an intimidating legend, but a calm set of systems and rituals that hold you gently when your mind gets too loud. You leave with salt in your imagination, tar in your memory, leather in your palm, and a small smooth shell that fits your tired hand perfectly. And now, you don't have to carry anything else. Let your fingers loosen around the shell, even if you keep it there, even if you simply imagine it resting in your palm like a small piece of moonlight. Let the leather's warmth fade into the idea of softness. Let the tar's sharp scent turn into the memory of repair, quiet, contained, handled gently. You've walked enough. You've watched enough. You've noticed enough. In your mind, the crescent harbor becomes a curve of dark silk, holding a mirror of water that barely trembles. The lanterns become slower and slower stars, drifting lower until they are almost the same as the fireflies of a dream. The niches along the wall close their shadows like eyelids. The sea idols remain still, not demanding anything, simply keeping watch in the way a patient object keeps watch, by staying where it belongs. Your breath is the tide now. In and out, smooth and unhurried. Any leftover worries can be placed in a small stone recess, tucked safely behind the lamp's glow, where they can't chase you into bed. You don't need to solve them tonight. You don't need to prove anything tonight. You only need to rest. Let your shoulders sink a little deeper. Let your forehead soften. Let your legs feel heavy in the good way, the way a blanket feels heavy when it finally convinces you to stop moving. The harbor will keep its order without you. The city will keep its routines without you. And you, just for these few quiet minutes, can stop being the watchman of your own thoughts. One last slow inhale, cool as salt air. One last long exhale, warm as stone that held the day's sun. And as the final imagery fades, water, lanterns, leather, shell, let it all blur into the gentle darkness behind your eyes. End of story. Sweet dreams.